Hey everyone, today we're walking into a room where everything suddenly feels a little softer. The air, the lighting, the noise in your head. You sit down next to her, and for some reason, the war you've been fighting inside your chest finally takes a breath. And if you think you can control how others feel about you, then maybe that's exactly what you haven't let go of yet. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is over there. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on a fan for some soft background noise, and let's begin today's journey together. You don't say it to get a reaction, you say it because it's true. You make everything feel peaceful. It doesn't sound sexy. It doesn't sound like a pickup line, but it moves her deeply. Because in her world, peace is a luxury. She lives in a society that demands performance. Smile wider, work harder, talk softer, don't take up too much space. Even her silence is often expected to serve someone else. So when a man looks at her, truly looks at her and says, "Your presence quiets me," she pauses. Not because she doubts you, but because no one's ever said that before. You're not reacting to her body, you're responding to her soul. Imagine you're sitting across from someone at a little cafe on a rainy Tuesday. You're both sharing a slice of blueberry pie. No rush, no tension, no need to impress. And out of nowhere, you realize you haven't checked your phone in 45 minutes. That's what peace feels like. That's what she gave you. Gave. It's like emotional melatonin, but in a good way. And here's what most guys don't get. Women don't always want to be excited by a man. Sometimes they want to feel safe enough to exhale. Philosophers still debate whether love is an emotion or an action. But one thing is certain: safety is its oxygen. Without safety, love suffocates. So when you tell her she brings peace, that she makes life feel a little less like a war zone, you're not just flattering her, you're telling her you don't have to perform here. And that hits different. Remember the crocodile scented sunscreen you once tried because an influencer said it was natural. That same voice also told you love needs to be thrilling. But thrill fades. Chaos burns out. Peace, peace lasts. Tell her that when she walks into a room, it feels like the volume in your head gets turned down. Tell her that her laugh doesn't just sound nice, it feels like a song that rewires your nervous system. Don't overthink it. You don't need the perfect timing. You don't need candles or a full moon. Just be honest. Because when a woman hears "you make me feel calm," she hears "I can be myself around you." And that is the beginning of real emotional intimacy. Not every woman wants to be the flame. Some want to be the fireplace, the warmth, the stillness, the safe place you go to when the world forgets to be kind. So the next time you feel it, say it. Say, "You bring peace to my storm," because even if the moment passes, the feeling won't. She'll carry that with her not as an ego boost, but as proof. Proof that who she is matters more than what she looks like. And in a world that keeps scoring women on aesthetics, that's the compliment that cuts through everything. You notice it when she starts talking about something. She cares about the way her eyes flicker with light, like a switch being turned on inside a room you didn't know existed. She doesn't brag, she just explains. But there's a rhythm to the way she connects dots, how her words aren't just words, they're threads weaving something bigger. And you're sitting there realizing, damn, I could listen to her all day. So you say it quietly. The way your mind works is beautiful. Not in a "you're so smart, let's network" kind of way. Not like you're handing out compliments at a job interview. But in the kind of way that lets her know, "I'm not just listening, I'm absorbing." Because the truth is, most women have been taught that their thoughts are secondary. That beauty sells and brilliance should come with a disclaimer: not too much, don't be intimidating, smile when you speak. But when you tell her that her mind is what draws you in, that her ideas make you feel something, you're honoring the part of her that's rarely celebrated. Like that time you walked into IKEA to buy one lamp and somehow left with a kitchen island. You didn't plan to feel anything, but there you were, inspired. That's what it's like to meet a woman whose thoughts move you. Academic psychologists call this intellectual intimacy, the feeling of being stimulated by someone else's worldview. But let's skip the jargon. What you're really saying is, "I'm not here to finish your sentences. I'm here to learn your language." And don't just wait for her to explain the big stuff. Notice the little things, like how she pauses before responding, how she references old books and modern metaphors, how she wraps complex emotions into simple phrases. Tell her, "I love the way you think. You connect ideas I wouldn't have noticed." Tell her, "The way you explain things makes the world feel clearer." You don't have to agree with everything she says. That's not the point. The point is you're showing up mentally, not just physically. Most guys look at a woman and wonder, what's she like in bed? You're wondering what's she like in thought, and that shift that changes everything. Because while looks might turn heads, it's depth that holds attention. Remember the quirky barista who put orange slices in your iced coffee? It was weird, but you remembered it. Why? Because it was unexpected. It made you pause. That's what happens when you meet a woman whose mind surprises you. And when you tell her that when you make her feel seen for the way she thinks something opens, not just her interest in you, but her trust. Because now she knows you're not waiting for your turn to talk. You're here for the conversation itself. And she'll remember you, not because you memorized a smooth line, but because you were curious, because you admired her beyond the surface. So, yeah, tell her she looks great. Compliment the dress, smile at the lipstick. But don't stop there. Compliment her insight. Compliment the way she frames a story. Compliment the quiet fire behind her logic. Because when you say, I love how your mind works, you're touching the part of her that doesn't wear makeup. And that's the part she's most afraid no one will ever love. She doesn't cry in public. She doesn't scream when she's overwhelmed. Most days she smiles even when her chest feels like it's caving in. That's not because she's faking it. It's because she's survived enough to know that sometimes the only way through the fire is to walk through it without making a sound. And one night, maybe she's just sitting beside you on the couch, scrolling through her phone, laughing at some meme about overthinking, and you look at her and say, "You're so strong." And you don't even brag about it. She freezes just for a second. Not because she's shocked, but because no one's ever acknowledged that part of her before. Strength doesn't always look like lifting weights or breaking through walls. Sometimes it looks like getting out of bed when everything hurts. Sometimes it looks like replying to texts when all she wants to do is disappear. Sometimes it's cooking dinner while holding back tears that have nothing to do with onions. And when you notice that when you say it without fanfare, without performance, you're doing something most men don't. You're witnessing her. There's a term in trauma therapy, compassionate mirroring. It means reflecting back to someone what they've become too tired to see in themselves. And that's exactly what your words become. Not praise, not flirtation, just reflection. You've been holding it all together, and I see that. She might laugh it off. She might joke that she's just built different. But deep down, your words are touching the very muscle she uses to carry everyone else's weight. You're not worshiping her. You're not putting her on a pedestal. You're simply saying, I notice the effort you don't talk about. And in a world where women are constantly told to be soft but not too soft, independent but not intimidating, nurturing but never needy, that kind of recognition feels like a sip of water after days in the desert. Remember when you thought you were buying a simple bookshelf and ended up assembling a 6-level existential puzzle from Sweden? That's kind of what her life feels like sometimes. And she's doing it without instructions, just sheer willpower and a tiny screwdriver called hope. So when you come along and tell her she's strong, not because she shows it, but because she lives it, you become more than another guy with compliments. You become someone who gets it. And here's the quirky truth: most women don't know how to respond to that compliment. Not because they don't believe it, but because they're used to hiding their strength under jokes lipstick and carefully curated smiles. So your words catch them off guard in the best way. And no, this isn't about turning pain into romance. It's about turning presence into power. Because when a woman feels seen in her invisible labor, when she feels like her quiet battles are being noticed without being picked apart, something softens. She starts to trust. She starts to breathe. She starts to believe maybe she doesn't have to carry it all alone anymore. So the next time she says she's fine and she's not, remind her. Remind her that strength isn't loud. Strength isn't shiny. Sometimes it's just showing up and you see it. Because when you speak to that part of her not to fix it, not to solve it, but to honor it, you give her something better than attention. You give her recognition. She didn't walk in trying to steal the room. She didn't wear red lipstick for attention. She's just there, calm, still. But somehow your attention drifts toward her anyway. You can't explain it, not really. It's not her outfit, though. She looks good. It's not her perfume, though. There's something warm in the air. It's her energy. And it hits you like deja vu in slow motion. Like the feeling you get when a certain song plays in a place you've never been familiar and strange all at once. So you lean in and say quietly, almost hesitantly, there's something about your energy. I can't explain it, but it draws me in. That compliment. It's not like the others. It's not about appearance. It's not measurable. It's not logical. Philosophers still debate whether a person's essence is a reflection of their choices or something more spiritual, a vibration, a frequency, something unspoken but felt. You don't need a metaphysics degree to know when someone's vibe pulls you in. Here's the catch: most women don't even know they're radiating it. They've spent years trying to get noticed for what they do, dress well, speak well, move well. So when someone stops and says, "Your being affects me," it cracks open a new door in their psyche. You're not complimenting a performance, you're acknowledging presence. It's like that time you stood next to a candle that wasn't lit but still smelled like firewood. That's her. There's a hum in the room when she's near. And when you speak to that, she listens because now you're not judging. You're not labeling. You're just feeling. You're telling her, I don't need to understand it. I just know it's real. And that's rare. You know how people always say, just be yourself, like it's the easiest thing in the world. Well, for a woman who's spent her whole life learning to manage how much herself is acceptable, that compliment gives her permission to be. No edits, no angles, no social filter. When you tell her her energy is what draws you in, you're not asking her to be louder or smarter or sexier. You're inviting her to exist. And the ripple effect of that is huge. She'll open up, she'll relax. She might even smile in that way that says, I didn't know I needed to hear that. Because now she's not wondering if she has to impress you. She's not calculating her words or posture or eye contact. Now she can just be still. And that stillness becomes connection. It's the difference between being liked and being felt. Remember when you stood in front of a painting you didn't quite understand, but you couldn't walk away from it either? You couldn't articulate why, but it moved you. That's the feeling you're naming when you compliment her energy. And she'll carry that with her. Not like a trophy, but like a quiet flame she didn't know was still burning. So don't underestimate the moment. Even if your voice trembles a little, even if she looks confused, say it anyway. Say, there's just something about you. Because in a world addicted to noise, to performance, to packaging, you just became the one man who noticed the frequency beneath the static. And she won't forget that because now she won't forget herself. You're not trying to impress her. You're not putting on a show flexing ambition or pretending to have it all figured out. You're just sitting with her honest, a little uncertain, maybe even vulnerable, and something shifts. It's not about chasing, it's about rising. So you say the words most men never have the guts to say, you make me want to be better. Not to impress you, but to deserve you. It's not a performance, it's not a trap, it's truth. And in that moment, her eyes soften, not because you're trying to earn her love, but because she can feel the difference. You're not performing masculinity, you're practicing growth. There's a big difference. Most people evolve out of necessity, heartbreak, failure, public humiliation involving karaoke and cheap tequila. But this is evolution sparked by inspiration. And that is magnetic. There's a quirky little term in psychology self-expansion theory. It basically means we're drawn to people who make us feel like we can become more. Not smaller, not edited, but more. When you tell her she makes you want to become a better man, you're not placing your identity in her hands. You're telling her that her presence awakens a version of you that's been sleeping. It's like when you finally clean your apartment, not because you had to, but because someone special might stop by. The space doesn't change, but the intention behind it does. And that's what she hears in your words. Intention. You're not trying to win her. You're trying to meet her. Not in fantasy, but in purpose. Because real men don't chase women to fill a void. They grow themselves so they can hold space. And when you say, you make me want to step into my greatness, you're giving her something powerful, the knowledge that she doesn't have to shrink to be with you. She can be bold, bright, brilliant, and you'll rise to meet it. That's rare. Too many women dim their light because they're tired of intimidating men who measure masculinity by paycheck or muscle mass. But you tell her she inspires your growth, that her strength doesn't scare you, that her wisdom doesn't threaten you. That's not pedestal talk, that's partnership talk. Remember that scene in every sports movie where the coach says, I see greatness in you, now flip it. That's what you're giving her. Not a trophy, a mirror. You're saying you don't complete me, you awaken me. And whether you're on a first date or 10 years deep into something real, that statement never stops mattering. Because every woman secretly wonders, will he grow with me? Or against me, will he evolve beside me? Or try to control the pace? And when you say, your presence makes me want to become more honest, more intentional, more whole, you're answering that question without her even having to ask. She'll remember that. Not because it flatters her, but because it honors her. You're telling her, I don't just admire who you are, I want to rise so I can meet you there. And that makes you unforgettable. It hits you at the weirdest moment. Maybe you're halfway through a terrible movie, something with talking raccoons and zero plot, and she's beside you snorting at a joke you didn't even catch. And suddenly you realize you're not performing. You're not filtering your thoughts. You're not watching your words like they're stock prices. You're just you, So you turn to her and you say it without overthinking, I feel like I can be myself around you. And whether she plays it cool or her eyes go soft, something has already changed. Because that sentence, that's not just a compliment, that's a key to emotional safety. And for most women, that's the most locked door in their lives. Since they were girls, they've been trained to shapeshift. Be sweet but not naive. Be confident but not loud. Be sexy but not too sexual. Be strong but not intimidating. So when a man sits across from her, messy, relaxed, unpolished, and says, you make me feel like I can be human, she hears more than just words. She hears trust. She hears softness. She hears, you're not asking me to fix you, you're letting me see you. There's a funny thing that happens when you stop pretending to be impressive, you become real. And real is unforgettable. It's like the moment you realize your favorite hoodie smells better than your most expensive cologne, not because it's fancy, but because it's familiar. That's what this compliment becomes, a signal that says, around you, I can put down the weight. Philosophers still debate whether the true self is something we discover or something we create. But here's what matters more. When you tell her she brings that self out of you without judgment, without pressure, you're telling her she's a sanctuary. Not a savior, not a fantasy, but a place where masks aren't needed. And in return, you give her something even deeper, the space to be herself too. You stop being the man trying to win her over. You become the man who brings his whole truth. And that truth includes the quirks, the fears, the goofy stories you swore you'd never tell anyone. Like how you used to name your pimples in high school. Don't worry, she'll laugh. But more importantly, it includes the vulnerable parts, the ones men are told to hide. The anxiety, the uncertainty, the silence you carry when you feel like you're not enough. When you say, I can be myself with you, you're not just opening up. You're choosing her with your authenticity. And that's more intimate than any candlelit dinner. Because in a world of curated bios and filtered images, emotional nakedness is revolutionary. She doesn't want your perfection. She wants your truth, your flaws, your weird playlists, the way you get quiet when you're tired. Let her see that. Let her feel that. Because when a woman realizes she's not being loved for what she does, but for the space she creates in you, a space where you get to just be, that's when she doesn't just feel admired. She feels chosen. And in that soft silence between words where neither of you is trying too hard, she'll remember. Not the movie, not the moment, but the feeling of being safe, of being seen, of being the woman you could finally relax around. You're sitting there maybe after dinner, the plate's still on the table, the candles melted low. The conversation's moved past the surface. It's slower now, warmer. She's not selling herself. You're not pitching your highlight reel. And somewhere in the quiet between shared glances, you realize this doesn't feel like dating. This feels like something you could build your life around. So you say it, not loud, not poetic, just real. You're the kind of woman I could build peace with. Not excitement, not drama, not chaos, peace. And it lands. Not because it flatters her, but because it honors something deeper. See, most compliments pull from the past. You looked amazing in that dress. I loved what you said earlier. But this one is about what's possible, a vision, a future, a shared kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, it feels safe. Philosophers still argue over whether peace is the absence of struggle or the presence of alignment. But women, real women, they feel the difference. She's been through enough to know adrenaline isn't intimacy, fire isn't always love, and some sparks burn out before the lights come on. So when you say you bring peace, she hears a life she doesn't have to escape from. She hears mornings without anxiety, evenings without tension. She hears partnership, not possession. You're not telling her you want to have her. You're telling her you want to build with her. That's different. And let's be honest, most people don't think that way anymore. Relationships are treated like side quests. We swipe, we ghost, we chase dopamine hits and call it romance. But when you say, I could build peace with you, you break the algorithm. You tell her she doesn't have to outperform the last woman you dated. She doesn't have to outglam your ex. She just has to be. And that alone creates something sacred. It's like walking into a home that smells like lavender and old books where the floor creaks and the kettle hums and everything feels lived in, not curated. That's what she becomes. Not a performance, not a spark, a presence, a home. And here's the quirky part, she might not even realize that's what she's longing for. But the moment you speak it, her guard will drop just a little. Because now you're not another guy with lines. You're a man with a blueprint. Not for control, not for rescue, but for rest. And she'll remember that, even if you never say it again, even if things don't last, She'll remember the man who told her, you feel like peace, like something worth protecting, not conquering. Because in a world where love is often loud, fast, and temporary, you made her feel safe in the quiet. And that's a feeling no woman forgets. You're talking about life, not the big stuff, just the weird little corners of it. Childhood memories, favorite cereal, why she never trusts hotel alarm clocks. And somewhere in that soft rhythm, you notice something. It's not her resume, it's not her ambition, it's not even her charm. It's her essence. She shows up fully, not because she's trying to impress you, but because she knows who she is. And in that moment, you realize she's not trying to climb into your world. She's standing strong in her own. So you say it. You've got a spirit that's unforgettable. Not you're so successful, not I love how driven you are. Those are fine, sure. But they speak to status. This speaks to soul. It's what philosophers call character over condition, the recognition of who someone is when everything else is stripped away. And for women especially, women who've had to fight to be taken seriously, that compliment cuts through the noise. Because let's face it, she's probably been told to tone it down more times than she can count. Be less intense, less opinionated, more agreeable. So when a man looks at her and says, I don't love what you have, I love how you carry it, that changes everything. You're not just seeing the brand, you're feeling the being. And that's when her defenses drop, because now she doesn't have to earn your affection. She doesn't have to compete with your expectations. She can just exist. Like that time you found an old hoodie in the back of your closet, worn, faded, frayed around the edges, but somehow it felt more like you than anything you'd worn all year. That's what this compliment feels like. It's not flashy, it's not strategic, it's quiet, real, rooted. You're telling her, I see the fire behind your eyes, the grace in your silence, the way you make people feel without trying. You're not measuring her by what she's achieved. You're honoring what she embodies. And here's the quirky twist. She might laugh it off. She might say, oh, please, I'm just surviving. But deep down, you just gave her something that most people, friends, partners, coworkers never do. Recognition without condition. Not because she hit a goal, not because she posted the right photo, not because she made you feel like a king, but because she's her. And in that moment, something shifts in you too. You realize you're not attracted to her lifestyle. You're drawn to her light. It's a different kind of attraction, the kind that lingers, the kind that echoes long after she walks away. So the next time you feel it, say it. Tell her your energy isn't loud, it's lasting. Or you move through the world with something rare. I don't know what it is, but I feel it. Because compliments like that don't fade. They root. They settle in her bones. And long after the moment's gone, they remind her, I am more than what I do. I am how I live. And you become the one who saw it first. Not the man who chased her image, but the one who honored her essence. So now, slow down. Let the words settle. Let the noise of the day begin to dim like streetlights blinking on one by one after sunset. Because what we've just explored, it wasn't about strategy. It wasn't about game. It was about presence, about learning to see a woman not as a conquest, but as a whole living story. You've just been handed something rare, not a script to follow, but a lens to look through. You compliment her beauty and she smiles, but you compliment her peace, her mind, her energy, and she softens. She remembers, she opens. And in a world where so many are starving to be seen beyond the filters, that kind of presence, that kind of still honest noticing becomes unforgettable. So let go of the idea that love needs fireworks. Sometimes it just needs a quiet man who sees clearly and speaks gently. Remember this, you don't need to be perfect, you just need to be real. And when you are, the right woman won't just fall for you, she'll feel safe to rise with you. End of script. Have a beautiful day.